With the Iranian regime watching to judge what and who they are up against in Donald Trump's war, Donald Trump failed another "can he stay awake and alert in the cabinet room" test today. And remember, this was a meeting about the most important thing the cabinet can ever discuss: war.
The morale of their fighters plummeting, and we see that disconnect daily. They're privately admitting, as you said, Mr. President, very heavy losses. We know that. President Trump has given us a clear mission. Our capabilities are only going up and Iran's are plummeting. We are here to win, and we're full speed ahead.
And while he was at it, Donald Trump failed another self-administered cognitive test by being incoherent and wildly wrong about very, very simple things. Since 2018, Donald Trump has been publicly insisting that he has been taking cognitive tests and that he aced them. That's his word, aced. In 2020, the New York Times described the cognitive test that Donald Trump was boasting about as, quote, a 10-minute screening exam meant to highlight possible problems with thinking and memory. And the questions include being able to draw a clock and identifying a lion, rhino, or camel. A perfect score is 30. A score from 26 to 30 is considered normal. So a perfect score on the cognitive test that Donald Trump claims he aced is normal. The only reason to repeatedly administer cognitive tests to Donald Trump would be doctors' concern about Donald Trump's cognitive ability. Now listen to Donald Trump today, in the middle of what was supposed to be a wartime cabinet meeting, lying once again about his cognitive test.
I don't want a stupid person being president. You know, I'll say it right now. I say it because Don't Press never reports it. I'm the only president that ever took a cognitive test. I took it 3 times. It's actually a very hard test for a lot of people. It wasn't hard for me, but it's a cognitive test. It starts off with an easy question, and by the time you get to the middle, it gets tougher. By the time you get to the end, very few people can answer those questions. They get very tough mathematical equations and things. I took it 3 times. I aced it all 3 times in front of numerous doctors that I have no idea who they are. And I was told when I went in, they said, Doc Ronnie told me this. My current doctors are fantastic doctors. They said, well, if you take it, you know, it's Walter Reed. It's essentially a public hospital. And if you do badly, it's probably going to get out. But I aced it. I got them all right. And one doctor said, I've never seen anybody get them all right. I've been doing the test for 20 years.
Doctors see people get perfect scores all the time on cognitive tests. All the time. Perfect scores are normal. One question that is not on the cognitive test is, how much does a Sharpie cost? That became relevant today as Donald Trump, in a wartime cabinet meeting, drifted off into pathological lying about $1,000 pens and Sharpies in another proof that Donald Trump does not have the attention span or the mental capacity to be commander-in-chief.
See this pen right here? This pen is an interesting example. It's the same thing. So this pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. But I can't have the pen the way it was. You know what it is. I don't want to give too much publicity, but they do treat me well. Sharpie. So I came here, they have $1,000 pens. And you know, you hand pens out, you're signing and you hand them out, you're handing them to all these people. Sometimes you have 30, 40 people. And they were $1,000 a piece. Beautiful pen, ballpoint. 1,000, it was gold, silver, gorgeous. But I'm handing out to kids that don't even know what they are. What is this, Mommy? It's kids. They're getting a pen for $1,000. They have no idea what it is. And I feel guilty because I'm like, you know, I'm by nature, I don't, you know, it's the government. I love the government like I love myself economically. I want to save money. So I'm saying, this is crazy. And it had another problem. They didn't write well. So I take it out and I saw it and there's no ink. And I got all you people looking, and you say, there must be something wrong with Trump. And I'm signing, and there's no ink in the pen, and it costs $1,000. This one, I called the guy. I said, I'd like to use your pen, but I can't have a gray thing with a big S on it saying Sharpie. As I'm signing a $1 trillion airplane contract to buy brand new fighter jets, brand new B-2 bombers, of which we just ordered plenty. I can't do that with the press. Use your pen, but I like the pen the best, but I'll sign it. I could do like Biden did, give it to somebody else to sign, or an auto pen, or maybe sign it separately in another room, but I can't use your pen. He said, well, I can make it nicer. I said, what can you do? He said, I'll paint it black. I said, that's nice. And I can even paint the White House on it, sir, if you like, in gold. Almost real gold, not bad. And I can even do your signature, sir. And by the way, this was not staged. I just saw the pen sit there. I thought of this as an example of how $25 million spent by me at the Federal Reserve Building would be a better job than $4 billion that they're spending.
The Iranian regime was watching. And then he floated into a deranged digression about the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Republican Jerome Powell, in which Donald Trump said, among other things, quote, we have a moron at the Fed, end quote. When Donald Trump finally found his way back to his beloved Sharpie, he said this.
Just to finish on this one. So I told that story to somebody and said, yeah, but it's not the same thing. I said, you're right. This one is better. It writes. So the guy said to me, you don't have to pay me, sir. I'll give them to you for nothing. I said, no, I don't want that. Let me pay you. I want to pay you. No, sir, you don't have to. You're the president of the United States. He was shocked. The head of Sharpie gets a call. I don't even know who the hell he is. He said, is this really the president? He said, no, you don't have to pay me, sir. This is such an honor. I said, nope, I want to pay you. And he said, what would you like to pay? I said, how about $5 a pen? He said, that's all right. Whatever the hell we agreed to. Peanuts. As opposed to 1,000. And these were $1,000 pens. And we were giving them out. Sometimes, you were there for signings. I'd have 30, 40 people standing behind me. I'd give out 40 pens to people. Then somebody would say, could I have a couple extra? This way I'd go like this. Here, you want 5? Here, take 5. But the bottom line is, they're better pens. It's a business story. So for $5, could be 0, but for $5, I get a much better pen than for $1,000. And I can hand them out, and actually they become hot as a pistol. So what can I tell you? With that, could I give it to, please, a man who's done a great job at Treasury? Good luck, Scott.
Well, sir, as always, you're a tough act to follow, but that is very illustrative.
It is indeed very illustrative, as Scott Bessent just said. Donald Trump, the master negotiator, negotiating the price of a Sharpie, one Sharpie at $5. At Staples, right now, you can get a dozen for $8.99. That's 75 cents a Sharpie right now at Staples. Donald Trump was trying to show the room what a brilliant negotiator he is on behalf of the United States government, always getting the lowest price, even on Sharpies. And Donald Trump was in a room where he and none of the other billionaires in the room had the vaguest idea what the price of a Sharpie is. None of them had any idea. And so the $5 a Sharpie sounded great to those oblivious Trump buffoons. In any presidential campaign, it is always hard to pick the moment that decided the campaign. But in 1992, when the economy was the issue and President George H.W. Bush appeared to be oblivious to prices at a grocery store checkout counter, that may have been the moment when all was lost for the Bush campaign as Bill Clinton continued to campaign on what would now be called affordability. And in this moment in the American economy, with gas prices skyrocketing in the second year of a presidency in which the central campaign promise was to lower prices, Donald Trump demonstrated his obliviousness about a price that every mother or father with kids in school knows, the price of a Sharpie, 75 cents. Oh, And those $1,000 pens Donald Trump was talking about at the White House for bill signings, they never existed. That's a lie. The pens used for bill signings before the Trump presidency were very nice, high-end ballpoint pens with a retail price of about $200. President Bill Clinton gave me one of those pens at the bill signing for that budget bill that we first began discussing in that first cabinet room meeting that I was in. Joe Biden used slightly cheaper pens for bill signings during his presidency, but they were expensive pens, not $1,000. There are much more expensive pens in this world. Donald Trump is right that $1,000 pens exist. They just never have been used by the President of the United States for bill signings. So going from a $200 pen to a 75-cent Sharpie, or even Donald Trump's wildly overpriced $5 Sharpie, could be Donald Trump's only successful cost-cutting exercise in all of government, but he's not satisfied with it. He has to lie about the $1,000 pens that never existed. The Iranian regime that Donald Trump is at war with was watching today. They watched who they are up against. And we can be sure.
What this moment exposes is not just a lapse in discipline, but a deeper crisis of leadership where performance replaces competence and spectacle overtakes substance. Donald Trump, in the middle of a high-stakes wartime setting, drifted into rambling, self-congratulatory tangents, boasting about cognitive tests, fabricating stories about $1,000 pens, and showcasing a startling detachment from basic economic reality, while the world, including adversaries like Iran, watched closely. This is not just political theater, it is strategic exposure. Because in geopolitics, perception is power, and what was projected in that room was not clarity or command, but confusion dressed up as confidence. The insistence on trivial anecdotes and easily debunked claims doesn't just undermine credibility. It signals vulnerability, suggesting a leadership style more focused on self-mythology than situational awareness. And that is where the danger lies. When rhetoric becomes detached from reality, decision-making risks following the same path. In an environment where every word is scrutinized by allies and enemies alike, this kind of incoherence is not harmless. It is a liability, eroding trust, weakening deterrence, and raising serious questions about whether the narrative of strength being sold to the public is masking a far more unstable and unpredictable